Good morning and welcome to Korea Today Live from Seoul.
Why did North Korea suddenly pull out of the family reunions scheduled for this week? It blames the South's conservative government, but what is the real motive? We have an expert joining us to share his insight.
And the political wrangling between the country's main rival parties continues. Details coming up in the headlines.
And President Park Geun-hye's welfare policies are back in the limelight. We'll tell you the anticipated changes coming up on In Print.
What is the world's ugliest animal? And the world's first transparent building? Those stories will be on Hatclick, so please stay tuned.
And an ambitious tour on the ancient Silk Road connecting trade and cultures is revisited by a group of Korean youths. We meet the captain, Yoon Seung-chul, who led this journey. Youth startups are becoming a greater trend with increased government support and an increased spirit of challenge from the private sector. We meet some of these young entrepreneurs on Monday, September 23rd, 2013.
From Arirang News, this is Korea Today.
Good to have you with us on this Monday morning. Back to work and back to the daily grind. It was tough getting up this morning, wasn't it?
That's right. After a long holiday, the extended Chuseok holiday season, I'm sure it's a little bit tough to get back into action. You have the Monday blues, right? But look forward to the year 2014. I know it's next year, but in 2014, we'll have a total of 67 red days or holidays. Now, that's including Sundays, 52 Sundays to be exact, but it'll still be the year with the most number of holidays since the year 2002, and that's partially in thanks to the alternative holiday system.
That's right. Next year, the Chuseok day falls on a Monday, so initially you get Monday and Tuesday off, but with this alternative holiday system, you get Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday off too. So it's going to be a nice long 5-day break again. We're already thinking of next year's Chuseok, right?
Well, if you're still counting holidays, then look forward to the year 2018 because 2018 will offer 68 holidays.
Wow. I like with the eyebrows too. All right, we'll begin Korea Today on this Monday morning with a look at the day's headlines.
The ball is back in South Korea's court, says North Korea. Some 80 South Korean personnel that were staying at the Mount Kumgang Resort in the north for what would have been the first inter-Korean family reunions in 3 years have pulled out over the weekend. Seoul has called Pyongyang's unilateral decision to postpone the event an inhumane act, and the blame game once again has begun.
The puppet government, which has challenged our brotherhood and humanitarian efforts and sincerity with rash behavior, is the unacceptable, inhumane criminal.
This comes a day after Pyongyang blaming South Korean leaders and conservatives for straining inter-Korean relations suddenly announced it would cancel the event until the mood is normalized. The North added the fate of the reunions now depends on Seoul's attitude. Insiders say inter-Korean relations have reached a new stalemate, with the South Korean government unlikely to suggest holding talks anytime soon. Most of the hostages held at an upscale mall in Nairobi, Kenya, have been rescued, according to various media outlets. CNN reports joint Israeli-Kenyan forces are now in control of most of the building where an Islamist militant attack began over the weekend. The attack so far has killed 68 and injured 175, according to the Kenyan Red Cross. The Korean embassy in Kenya says one Korean, 38-year-old Kang Moon-hee, was among the dead, but another Korean citizen who was initially reported missing has been confirmed safe. Somali militant group Al-Shabaab says the deaths were retribution for Kenyan involvement in Somalia, adding that there will be no negotiations. The international community has condemned the attack in the strongest possible terms and has offered to provide necessary assistance. Korea's foreign ministry has issued travel advisory for Koreans planning on traveling to Kenya in light of the attack. The political wrangling continues with no seeming breakthrough. The main opposition Democratic Party pushed on with its street protest over the Chuseok holiday, while the ruling Saenuri Party once again urged the opposition to come back to the National Assembly and start fulfilling its duty.
We call on the Democratic Party to stop the political fighting and start competing with policies. This is the public's demand and the common responsibility of ruling and opposition parties.
But the DP is unwilling to back down. Chairman Kim Han-gil is said to be mulling over expanding the protest and going on a nationwide tour to garner more support.
I've talked about the DP's future path with many fellow lawmakers who have visited our tent over the holidays. Most of them agreed that we need to intensify the protest both in and outside of the assembly.
The two sides are scheduled to hold respective general meetings this Monday to discuss how to deal with the situation. Experts say this week will be a critical point for the two main rival parties, with the government's reform proposal on the contested spy agency expected to come out by the end of the month. Korea's debt-to-GDP ratio has hit a record high in the second quarter this year. The Bank of Korea says the ratio of the total owed by the nation's households, companies, as well as the government reached just shy of 290% of Korea's economic output over the past 1 year. The central bank says this is about 3 times more than the nation's economic scale. Korea's debt-to-GDP ratio remained in the 220% range until 2003, before it surpassed the 270% mark at the end of 2008 at the height of the global financial crisis. Experts warn that the government should implement measures to revive the economic growth rate and improve the fiscal soundness of the nation's major economic players.
And happy Monday, everyone. As folks here in Korea resettle into their daily rhythms following the extended Chuseok holidays, they're waking up to a varied amount of stories today. High on the news barometer is the bloody Kenya shopping mall attack on Saturday, Nairobi time, that killed at least 59 and injured some 200. 조선일보's front page image shows a pair of mothers trying to get out alive with their babies. Let's go ahead and take a look at the story also on Gyeongyang Shinmun, which has it as its top pictorial pic as well, it also includes a picture of the 38-year-old Korean Kang Moon-hee, who was among those killed. Taking responsibility for the attack is Al-Shabaab, Al-Qaeda's proxy in Somalia. Meanwhile, the top local story this morning relates to the president's welfare pledges. The headline right here reads, Park Geun-hye's representative pledge basic pension for 65 years and older sees dramatic retreat. That is, it's looking like the campaign promised to provide a monthly stipend of roughly $200 a month to all citizens 65 years and older will be shaved down to those in the lower 70% income bracket. This change is expected to be reflected in the 2014 budget that will be released on Thursday. And Gyeongyang warns that there could be further reductions in the proposed welfare plan. Relatedly, the Health and Welfare Minister Jin Young is expected to tender his resignation upon his return from his trip to Saudi Arabia this week to take responsibility for the abandoned pledge. And Jin was instrumental in forming the president's welfare plan, but it appears the hefty cost has overtaken the minister. Taking a look at 조선일보, it also has a story as its top. The headline reads, Park Geun-hye's welfare acknowledges wall of reality. This paper says Minister Jin's resignation will serve as a symbolic gesture and a turning point for the president's welfare policies and the country's financial affairs. And we'll leave that story there, scoot on over to 동아일보 now. Its front page image takes us to Tokyo, where some 1,000 took to the streets to march against anti-Korean sentiment. The caption notes that the group made up of Korean expats as well as Japanese citizens marched some 3 kilometers from Shinjuku Central Park to Shinokubo, which is the city's Koreatown. They held up signs that read, "No more discrimination. Let's walk together." And you can also see a sign in Korean that reads 친하게 지내요, which roughly translated means let's be friends. Participants were asked to wear black suits, just as Martin Luther King Jr. and civil rights activists did during their march in Washington some 50 years ago. Meanwhile, the top headline reads, professors at regional universities have research abilities as high as their SKY counterparts. SKY, of course, is an acronym for the universities generally considered to be among the best in Korea, Seoul National University, Korea University, and Yonsei University. The article including there a list of top researchers in various fields following an analysis done with the National Research Foundation and social media analyst Tidium. Only 2 of the 7 actually come from those SKY universities. One came from Ewha Women's University, and the top economy researcher, for instance, is noted to be Professor Choi Byung-ho from Busan National University. All right, we'll go ahead and leave that story there and go on over to our final newspaper for today, Korea Economic Daily. On that campus note, this newspaper's headline reads, University graduates jump into worst employment war. And the subheadline going on to say that telecommunications company KT saw some 45,000 apply for its 300 openings. It also says that the number of jobs have shrunken among state-owned companies and financial companies. The article adds that more and more young job seekers are taking a so-called don't ask application mentality, which basically means applying to all companies one is qualified for to see which one bites regardless of interest.
Wow, 45,000 to 300. It's Monday after a long break. My brain's not functioning. What are the odds there?
Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the insert for that. KT, it says 150 to 1. That is a jump from the 100 to 1 that we saw last year.
That's nearly impossible.
Right. And KT's not the only one. Kiyeop은행 or IBK Bank saw 95 to 1, which is also a jump from last year's 94 to 1. And in fact, Samsung Electronics, or Samsung Group rather, will begin accepting applications today. And the newspaper projects that it will also see an influx of applicants from the record 80,000 that applied last year.
Wow. Good luck to them, right?
There's got to be some discouraging numbers for prospective job seekers.
Can't give up, though.
But yeah, you can't give up, though. You just have to keep trying.
And many of them have been preparing over the Chuseok holidays, so certainly good luck to them. With that, we'll wrap your look at what's in print on this Monday. Korean markets were closed on Friday due to the Chuseok holidays, so next up are your closing numbers from elsewhere around the world.
And going back to the topic of inter-Korean relations, we have Arirang special commentator Dr. Kim Cho-ru in the studio to tell us more about Pyongyang's sudden decision to postpone the inter-Korean family reunions. Thanks for being here, Professor, Doctor.
Good to be here.
Okay, so North Korea blamed the South Korean conservatives for postponing the much-awaited family reunions. It caught a lot of people off guard as well. What do you think the motive behind this is?
I think this case is North Korea's motive is kind of a miscalculation or misjudgment. Traditionally, over the last 18 times of family reunions, the family reunion was the traditional stepping stone for getting a lot of highly expected consensus from the South, but this time it didn't work. So I think the North Koreans are trying to use the family reunion as a traditional form of leverage, which they wish to hold over to Seoul, but it didn't work. So I think the North Koreans, after action review, they perceive that this is the totally new game. So they're trying to set the new atmosphere. So interestingly enough, from the spokesman's rhetoric, they use the normal atmosphere, which is normal. Which is normal. Normal is to their own favorite. So I think that this is the very they acknowledge it, they are losing game at this time. On top of that, family union is closely linked to the Mountain Kumgang Resort program, the tour program. So I think that they are pressing Seoul to resume the Mountain Kumgang. So I think the family union is not the emotional humanitarian issue for the North Korea. It's closely linked to the political, economic issues for their own benefits.
So how likely is it at this point for the family reunions to take place in the near future then?
After a certain period of chilling period, I think that they're going to restart based on which one goes first, Kumgang or the family reunion. There's a tug of war will happen. But as long as the South Koreans keep the principled stance over the period of time, it's very unlikely to happen very quickly. So there's a certain pressure and encouragement. I think the Seoul is trying to how to use the encouragement policy to let them come again to the negotiating table.
And what would it take for the reunions to take place? Like you said, what would make North Korea happy then at this point?
At this point, after Kaesong Industrial Complex has normalized, they at least can desperately need cash. That's okay for the North Korea. So the Mountain Kumgang Resort area is the Kim Jong-un regime's kind of legitimate because Kim Jong-un emphasized the Masingnyeong speed and all the northeast side of the development project. So North Korea's Byungjin line, so-called nuclear development, economic development, simultaneous development. So they desperately need money, and then family union is a stepping stone for their own benefits. But the South Korea has clearly made clear that it's not likely to linkage those two different issues. So South Korea's stance is very important at this point. So Park Geun-hye government is not the traditional former two governments. I think we are approaching the critical time to get ahead with the principled, trust-based approach. But unfortunately, North Korea's emphasized pride and dignity. That's another point.
So it seems like it's almost fair to say that Pyongyang, now content with how the Kaesong Industrial Complex has been resolved, they now want to gain leverage in terms of inter-Korean relations. So are we back to square one in terms of the inter-Korean relations?
Not likely to a spring-style rhetorical warfare, but it's likely to happen. The kind of blaming game propaganda will flourish. But the real essence of the North Korean stance is they need this China support to get back to the six-party talk. So my understanding, the six-party talks development is very important in understanding even the Kumgang and the family union event. It looks like different issues, but it is closely related to the China's backup to the North Korea's stance is very critical point to watch on.
So the South Korean government called North Korea's decision an inhumane act, and Pyongyang says the ball is now in South Korea's court. What kind of approach should the South take from here on? So
Seoul's understanding of normal atmosphere is the lively inter-Korean relations for the humanitarian basis and for the co-prosperity. Why don't we go together to the right decisions, not the miscalculations or the pressing the other side? So I think Seoul's stance has been so far pretty good, and I admire that point because Seoul equates North Korea's very strange demand. So it's another way to stray around. So I think the South Korea's step-by-step so-called trust politic is a very good point because of the co-prosperity. So at least in terms of humanitarian sense, the family union is very good point. But international community watching over this kind of North Korea's new abrupt decisions. So we encourage North Korea, why don't we get together to going back to the negotiating and table. They started this kind of direct dialogue offensive, but they, little bit set back from that table. So I think that they're trying to mulling over or thinking over again and taking time to go ahead with the South Korean counterpart.
Right, so don't be swayed by North Korea's rhetorics, but stick to the principles of the South Korean government is your suggestion. Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Kim Chol-woo, for joining us today. That was Arirang special commentator Dr. Kim Chol-woo on the topic of inter-Korean relations. Back to you, Yang and Minjung.
Thank you, Yang Yang. Let's now get a check on the weather with our Lee Da-mi. It was almost like summer, during the Chuseok
sure
holidays,
was.
right?
Although the overnight temperatures are dropping down to the teens, it seems that the daytime temperatures are rising. We'll get a check on the weather. Good morning, Tommy.
Ooh, is she floating? Is she standing on
Beautiful
water?
backdrop there.
Right.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. I hope everyone had a great time during the Chuseok holiday. I sure did. Right now, I'm reporting live from Daegu Island, located in Ansan, Gyeonggi Province. Now, today here in Korea, it marks a day what we call Chubun, which is where the length of both the day and night are the same. As for the morning conditions, this morning we're starting off with beautiful weather conditions. The sun is out and about. As for the temperatures, it's not too hot, not too cold. There is a slight breeze that feels very good, and temperatures are at 19 degrees Celsius. However, later our afternoons will leap up about 10 degrees, making it quite hot. But hang in there, because it looks like today will be the last of those days, as tomorrow we will be expecting nationwide precipitation, which will result with cooler temperatures. But also do keep in mind that here in the central regions, we may receive quite a lot of rain, of about 30 to 80 millimeters, maybe even 100 millimeters in some areas. All right, let's now get a check on today's weather. Seoul will steam up with highs at 28, Daejeon a bit hotter at 29, Daegu 28, Gangneung the coolest at 25, Gwangju the hottest at 30, as Busan and Jeju at 28 degrees. That's all I have for the weather forecast. I'll be back later in the show.
And still ahead, the ancient Silk Road bridged the West and East through culture and trade. And stepping back in time, youth captain Yoon Seung-chul leads a mission across the Korea Silk Road. We follow the path of his journey and listen to his stories.
The subject of inter-Korean relations, as well as the reunions for separated family members of the Korean War, has been a hot issue. And this year it marks the 60th anniversary of the signing of the Korean War armistice. Now, the Korean War is still remembered as one of the biggest tragedies to take place on the peninsula. Over 2 million soldiers from 21 different countries, they fought here on Korea.
And the Korean government has been on a mission to thank them and to show appreciation to them. And one of the many services that they provide is the medical service to these war veterans, many of whom are in their 80s.
That's right. Several soldiers were invited back to Korea for a special program that provides medical care, free medical care that is, in a hospital in Daejeon. Let's take a look.
The Seoul National Cemetery, where many brave soldiers who sacrificed their lives for the country are laid to rest. A group of special guests paid a visit here. They are the 121 Korean War veterans from the U.S. and Britain who have been invited back to the country by the Ministry of Patriots and Veterans Affairs 60 years after the signing of the armistice.
To remember soldiers and Marines who fought in the war, as you are doing now, is a remarkable thing. Regretfully, I think of the people that didn't get to go home, that were friends of mine or that died after the war.
You people have really sacrificed, and it's an honor to be here.
Out of the many visiting veterans, some of the British veterans have a special reason for coming to Korea. This is veteran Frederick W.P. Hall's first time coming back to Korea in 60 years with his family.
I mean, I was one of thousands of people who were involved in the war, and now we're getting something back for our sacrifice. So it's worked out very well.
As one of the winners of the British-Korean War Veterans Enduring Legacy Essay Contest, Mr. Hull was invited to receive special medical treatment from a Korean hospital.
Out of the essays from some 50 Korean War veterans from Britain, we selected 4 winners. The selection for this competition was based on the contestants' affection for Korea and how much he wanted to revisit the country.
Mr. Hull and other winners first received the basic checkups ranging from blood tests, blood pressure tests, eyesight examinations to x-rays.
As many of the veterans are well over the age of 80, thorough heart and brain examinations will be conducted along with hearing and orthopedic checks. These services will help enhance Korea's national prestige while promoting the country's image through medical diplomacy.
Mr. Hull has been regularly suffering from cardiovascular problems, and after receiving an intensive checkup, he is thoroughly impressed with the medical facilities and expertise of the doctors and hospital staff.
Start breathing again. Well, it's all done so quickly and so efficiently. At home, we'd have to wait for an appointment, and then you'd hang around the hospital all day to get it done. Here, there's so many people involved. I ought to come back and have it. When I want a medical check every time I come back here.
Next is time for a Seoul tour. The veterans and families are able to enjoy and make priceless memories touring various spots around the nation's capital. The War Memorial of Korea still holding the scars and haunting memories of the Korean War. And for the veterans, these moments are still painful as many of them did not get to say their proper goodbyes to their fellow fallen soldiers who lost their lives on the bloody battlefield. And to this very day, the veterans are saddened that the Korean peninsula is still divided.
The Korean people are grateful for the sacrifices that we made, and they've shown that to us in our visit. And we will return home well aware of that and happy.
I have hopes that one day all of you young people can go from Busan to Seoul to Pyongyang to Unsan like I did in a free, democratic, united Korea.
Along with the times, the once young, brave soldiers have become gray-haired veterans. Regardless, in their hearts, they still hope that freedom, peace, and unity will become a reality on the Korean peninsula.
Good Monday morning. My name is Chun Sung-cho and this is Hot Clicks. Today we start with an interesting art piece. Take a look at what 10,000 nuts and bolts put together can do. And this work was done by 12 Korean college students over the course of 7 months. What an enormous effort, right? They created the continent of Asia by just placing nuts and bolts on top of an iron plate. These students, who are youth supporters of the 2014 Incheon Asian Games, decided to put together such a creative and unique piece in hopes of promoting the Korean city of Incheon and Korea to the rest of Asia. And staying on Incheon, there was a lot of buzz when people learned the world's first transparent building called Tower Infinity will be erected in Incheon's Cheongna district near the Incheon International Airport. Yes, transparent. But no worries, there's no magic involved here. How it works is it'll play lifetime footage of the surrounding scenery on a large LED projector in front of the building, captured by a camera installed in the back, and this will create a visual dissolution to make it seem as if the building is non-existent. Pretty amazing, right? And the height of Tower Infinity will be at 450 meters, making it the 6th tallest building in the world. With so much attention around this transparent building, now I can't wait to actually see the final product myself. And now moving on to our next story. For the first time in history, a freestyle battle between Rep and Pansori took place. And here Pansori is a genre of Korean traditional music, so I'm sure many of you are curious and wondering how the battle can actually work. This very special tournament took place recently at a club in the Hongik University district. There were 8 rappers and 8 Pansori singers participating in this event. And each of them was given 1 minute to battle one another with given themes like social media and first love. At this tournament, all the spectators were allowed to cast their vote to determine the winner via text message, and the first place honor went to Pansori artist Lee Seung-min. Have you ever heard of an organization called the Ugly Animal Preservation Society? It was created in the UK to raise awareness about endangered and aesthetically challenged animals. And recently, the society needed a new mascot. So as you can see in the video right now, a total of 11 ugly, strange-looking animals were featured on YouTube, so people could vote on the ugliest one. And of course, all 11 contestants are classified as threatened animals. So here are the top 3. In third place is the British bat. Next is the proboscis monkey. Look at the size of its nose. And the winner is the blobfish. A blobfish is a deep-sea creature that's found in the waters of Southeast Australia. But they're on the brink of extinction as fishermen indiscriminately capture them using what's called bottom trawling nets. And this kind of environmental destruction is definitely why we need more organizations like the Ugly Animal Preservation Society to draw attention to the threats facing these weird but wonderful animals.
Weird but wonderful. Not all of them are really all that ugly, but I have to give it to the blobfish. Looks like a really, really grumpy grandfather of sorts, right? But they all look like that, and it's a process of evolution. So, I mean, they look like that for a reason, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, so the blobfish, they live in the deep sea, somewhere between around 600 to 1,200 meters below the sea level. So the extremely high pressure down there is what causes the drooping and somewhat grumpy looking physical appearance.
That's why he's not
blobfish.
a happy camper, because of all the pressure in the tank.
Oh, maybe. But I think it's animal cruelty to call them the world's ugliest animals. Call them pretty little nice, least attractive maybe, or something.
Maybe. I mean, but then experts say that it is a more efficient way to raise awareness among the public on the almost extinct animals.
By calling them the world's ugliest?
Yes.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, well, the group's president, Simon Watt, basically said that we are paying too much attention on pandas, you know, those cute little fluffy animals that we all love.
As well, yeah.
Yes, yes. And obviously he's not against it, but what he's trying to say is that now it's time to turn around and get more people to help those animals that have been somewhat neglected just because of their unattractive looks. Well, that's all from me today on Hot Clicks. I'll see you back here next Monday. And back to you guys.
Thank you, Sung-Cho. I'm trying to see a resemblance
between me and the blobfish.
Oh,
between me and the blobfish.
No, I couldn't find any,
I'd have to poke my nose down a little bit, a bit more grumpy, right?
You're better looking than that.
All right. From ugly to smart and creative as well as imaginative, many entrepreneurs these days are doing something new. And still ahead on Korea Today, we'll get a chance to meet some of these guys who are using their creativity and their bold spirit of challenge. More youths are starting up their own businesses. We meet soon-to-be entrepreneurs as well as more established startup founders who are looking to take the next leap.
The Istanbul Gyeongju World Culture Expo 2013 that was held in Istanbul, Turkey, just came to an end just yesterday. And this expo began in 1998, but this year it connected the two cities that are at the end of the Silk Road.
And it seems that the Korean wave, as well as interest in Korea, is becoming more prominent through expos like these, bringing in the so-called kore, or the Korean craze. Now, they're displaying several aspects of traditional Korean culture from the Three Kingdoms period, as well as the Joseon dynasty, also displaying elements of Korea's IT tech, and of course, you can't leave out Korean wave.
That's right. But ahead of this expo, a special expedition team traveled from Gyeongju to Istanbul. We sat down with the head of this expedition team, Mr. Yoon Seung-chul, to learn more about their trip. So take a look.
The Silk Road was a crucial travel route that connected the East and West. This long path has been known to have started from Xi'an, China, reaching all the way up to the eastern and northern Mediterranean regions. On September 3rd, as part of the Istanbul Gyeongju World Culture Expo 2013 project, the Korea Silk Road expedition team set out from Korea to trace the history of this important and grand trail. The youngest winner of the Four Deserts Grand Slam Marathon, Yoon Seung-chul, was named the youth team leader of the group.
고대 실크로드를 하면 많은 사람들이 중국의 시안부터 터키 이스탄불까지라고 알고 있어요. 그런데 사실은 그게 아니거든요. 실크로드가 한 개의 길만 있었던 게 아니라 여러 갈래의 길이 있었는데 우리나라도 그 실크로드 길 위에 있었다는 거죠. 그래서 우리나라 경주만 보더라도 그 실크로드 길에서 가장 또 핵심적이고 중요했던 거점 도시 중에 한 개였다. 그런 것들을 알리기 위해서 이제 코리아 실크로드 프로젝트가 진행이 됐던 거고, 그 일환으로 저희 탐험대가 이제 경주부터 터키 이스탄불까지 이렇게 갔던 겁니다.
The team started its first journey from the Korean city of Gyeongju and headed to Xi'an, China, which is known as the starting point of the Silk Road. The latter part of the trip was from Xi'an to Istanbul, Turkey, a total of 13,000 kilometers in distance. This path is one traveled by Korean ancestors since the Three Kingdoms era that began in the 1st century BC.
어떻게 그 시대에 고구려, 신라, 백제 사람들이 중앙아시아를 넘어서 진짜 서아시아까지 왔을까라는 의문이 들게 하는 흔적들이 엄청 많았어요. 제가 생각했던 실크로드는 그냥 단순히 사막길, 무역로라고만 생각을 했는데 해초 스님, 고선지 장군 전투를 했던 흔적도 있었고, 이란에 가서는 우리나라 사신이 그려진 벽화를 보기도 했었어요. 그냥 차로 가도 정말 2달이 걸리고 또 쉽지 않은 길이었거든요. 와, 지금도 차로 가도 그 힘든 길을 어떻게 낙타를 타고 걸어서 갔을까라는 생각에 진짜 경이로운 생각도 들고, 또 한편으로는 그분들이 있었기 때문에 동서양의 문화가 서로 교류가 됐었고, 신라도 그 속에서 신라 나름대로의 문화를 꽃피웠지 않나라는 생각을 합니다.
The expedition team found evidence indicating the cultural exchange between the East and West via the Silk Road, tracing back some 1,300 years, like the memoir of the pilgrimage to the Five Kingdoms of India, written by a Buddhist monk from the Shilla dynasty. Various findings of Western cultures have also been found in ancient Shilla dynasty's home ground, Gyeongju. The expedition team traveled with the goal of expanding the Silk Road from Rome to Korea through these historical discoveries. The expedition team was given a remarkable opportunity to trace back history, but not all destinations were safe.
조금 이제 걱정됐던 게 중국 그 신장 지역이랑 이란이랑 그 투르크메니스탄이었거든요. 신장 지역은 그 민족 문제 때문에 되게 민감했었고, 투르크메니스탄은 또 독재 국가여서 좀 걱정이 됐고, 이란은 보수적이고 좀 폐쇄적인 국가라고만 생각을 했어요. 근데 정말 다행히도 사람들이 모두 환대를 해주고, 또 생각했던 것 이상으로 위험했던 그런 경우를 못 만나서 진짜 저희는 어떻게 보면 참 운이 좋게 잘 무사히 다녀왔던 것 같습니다.
The 45-day trip of the Korea Silk Road expedition that took the travelers to various Silk Road cities to promote and inform others about the Shilla dynasty and Korea's culture came to an end on the opening day of the Gyeongju Istanbul World Culture Expo 2013.
실크로드 탐험대가 경주에서 출발해서 이제 터키 이스탄불에 딱 들어가는 날이 이스탄불 경주 세계 문화 엑스포가 딱 개막하는 날이었어요. 보니까 첫날인데도 터키 이스탄불 사람들이 정말 많이 와서 줄을 서서 구경을 하고 있었고, 또 제가 정말 인상 깊었던 건 그 자원봉사자들이 수가 엄청 많았어요. 근데 그 친구들이 한국어를 전혀 모르고 있다가 그 자원봉사를 하면서 한국어를 배워서 먼저 안녕하세요라고 인사를 하더라고요.
The Korea Silk Road Expedition youth team leader Yoon Seung-chul is now back to being a college student, but his vision is now set on a new future.
실크로드 국가들 간에 점점 더 긴밀한 관계가 형성이 되고 있어요. 실크로드 길을 통해서 지금 우리나라가 얻을 수 있는 뭐 경제적이나 정치적인 이익은 무엇인지를 저희가 한번 동시에 그 과거들 조상들의 모습을 한번 보면서 동시에 그런 것들을 찾고자 했거든요. 왜냐하면 중앙아시아 국가들과 그리고 터키, 이란은 물론이고 경제적인 교류가 점점 늘어나고 있고 또 충분히 발전 가능성이 있는 나라이기 때문에 저희가 앞으로 더 긴밀한 교류 협력이 이루어지지 않을까.
And the expedition's 45-day trip will be summarized through a travel log, which will be told in storytelling style. And another point worth noting is that members of the expedition also included singers as well as artists and writers. So this will be very interesting.
And I mean, the Turkish, like Mr. Yoon said, the Turkish Prime Minister proclaimed Gyeongju as the starting point of the Silk Road in the Expo's opening speech. And many historians from Rome and China also showed various historical materials showing that the Shilla dynasty was indeed one of the kingdoms that experienced cultural exchange between East and West.
That's right. And this expo turned out to be a huge gathering, too. The number of visitors stood at 2.5 million, which met the initial target. So a huge successful event there.
All right. Sounds like it would have been a very interesting experience to be there for ourselves.
That's right. Well, let's shift gears now and go to our Dami, who is joining us from the fishing village in Daegu, Ansan in Gyeonggi province, but she's ready to harvest some sweet potatoes.
Do they have like fish-shaped potatoes?
I don't know what the deal is there. So back to you, Dami, explain to us.
I'm back reporting live from the Seongan Fishing Experience Village located on Daegu Island. Now, Daegu Island is known to be a popular vacation spot as it's near the city and there's lots of experience programs to try out. Speaking of which, usually the name of the location or where I'm going gives away what I'll be doing today, but I'm not going fishing. I'm actually going to be harvesting sweet potatoes. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started since I'm all geared up anyways. Now, usually sweet potatoes are harvested between the months of August to October. And here in the village, they provide experience programs during October. And the sweet potatoes here are known to be very delicious as they do grow here in the red clay and against the sea breeze as well. And supposedly, sweet potatoes were introduced to Korea in the 1700s. I had no idea. Voila, there's my first sweet potato. All right, let's take a couple of more right here. All right, and what's great about the harvest, the experience, is that you can take home as many sweet potatoes as you harvest. All right, and what I love about sweet potatoes is that you can have them both raw and cooked. And we already have some cooked or steamed sweet potatoes on the side. So, didn't have breakfast yet, so this is gonna be perfect. Look how yellow and beautiful it is. Now, all I can say is that, if for those of you who haven't been able to enjoy the Chuseok holiday to its fullest, then you should definitely come on by Daegu Island since it's near the city with your family and loved ones and maybe harvest some sweet potatoes as well. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and feast. That's all I have for now. I'm Idami, Korea Today. All right, peel off the skin.
And a good Monday morning to you all. And if you were up watching Park Ji-sung and PSV Eindhoven taking on their rivals Ajax, an even better Monday morning. And the midfielder playing a full 90 minutes in the match for the first time since signing with PSV helped him crush Ajax 4-0. Now, the 63rd minute of the match, Park Ji-sung moves down the line and passes to his open teammate, who finds the back of the net as Park earns an assist on the play. But he wasn't done yet. PSV up 3-0 in the match. It was time for him to score as he sends one past the goalkeeper in the 68th minute of the match. 4-0 PSV. Goal on the match is his second goal of the season with PSV. And with that said, moving on to some Sunday night KBO action as things are really coming down to the wire over in the Korea Baseball Organization. Now, the Doosan Bears still looking for a first-place finish. They crushed the Kia Tigers 11-3, with the SK Wyverns beating the Hanwha Eagles 3-2. So with that said, two more games did take place last night as we take a look at the Nexen Heroes taking on the Lotte Giants. We're going to shift over to the first inning of the game. Right off the bat, here is Kim Min-sung with an RBI single to right center field as Lee Tae-geun comes around to score the first run of the game. Third inning this time, Son Ha-seop ties the game up with an infield single here, scoring Lee Sung-hwa from third. Not done yet though, Chun Jun-woo, a sac fly to center field gives the Lotte Giants the lead here, 2-1 after 3 innings of play. But in the fifth inning of the game, here is Park Byung-ho at bat. He's going to drill this one to deep left field. No doubt about it, a 2-run shot as Nexen takes the lead 3-2. We got to shift gears to the ninth inning here. Lotte not giving up, ties the ball game up thanks to a wild pitch. But check this out, bottom of the ninth inning tie ball game. This is thrown out into the outfield and in comes Lee Tae-geun around to score, and that's how this game ends, 4-3, Nexen Heroes. And next up, the LG Twins taking on the NC Dinos. Second inning, Yoon Yo-sup, an RBI double to center field gives the LG Twins the early 1-0 lead. Third inning, Chung Sung-hoon sends this one to center field. A sac fly brings home Park Yong-taek for a 2-0 lead. Fourth inning, here's NC's Kwon Hee-dong. Here we go. This one is out of here. A solo shot cuts the deficit to 2-1 LG Twins. But in the sixth inning of the game, here is Lee Byung-hyu in the game to pinch hit. And my goodness, this one is crushed to left center field. A 3-run shot for the captain as the LG Twins take this game 6-1 and clinch the playoff spot for the first time in a decade. Now, a lot of excitement over the weekend as the KDB Korea Open finished off with a victory for number 4 ranked Agnieszka Radwanska at the Olympic Park in Seoul. Going up against Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova in the finals, Radwanska loses the first set in the very close battle before coming back in the next two sets to take this match 6-7-6, 6-3, 6-4. The Korea Open victory is her first victory since PIA International in Sydney in January, as Radwanska hopes to return to Korea once again next season. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
One of the key focal points of the Park Geun-hye administration is the creative economy, with many young entrepreneurs gaining more support in the form of funding as well as mentoring and more. And to talk more about that, joining us is Audrey Young. Good morning.
Good morning, Audrey.
Good morning, everyone. Right now, Korea is focusing on the birth of a second boom of young ventures following the first wave back in the early 2000s. So let's check out what kind of new businesses are springing up and what kind of support they are receiving. Alarm On is a smartphone application that can replace an alarm clock. When the alarm rings, the egg starts cracking, and after 35 seconds, it speeds up to twice the rate. So the user needs to get up to stop this from happening. 5 college students started this company 2 years ago, and the business has been doing well with various alarm functions.
That's my alarm starting tomorrow.
We visited the Malang studio, the company that has received more than 3 million app downloads for Alarm On and is also expanding its business in the character.
We are having a meeting to prepare ourselves for an upcoming exhibition.
Although it started out with little capital, this year it was able to enter China and other markets. Currently in Korea, most of the venture businesses are startup companies like Malang.
Coincidentally, I had a chance to work at a venture company, and I liked the fact you can try out many unprecedented models and plans. I wanted to create and try something new, so I decided to start my own company while I was still in college.
안녕하세요, 걸스데이입니다. 네, 사회한 아이를 위해서 저희 걸스데이와 위제네레이션이 함께 캠페인을 합니다.
Unlike Malang Studio that has somewhat established itself, We Generation is still considered a new startup. It has received a lot of positive feedback for its service that uses crowdfunding through social platform services to make donations for those in need. The employees have different reasons for working at a startup company as opposed to a large firm.
We saw the competition ratio earlier
I think
today
our company is
for-
better than other big enterprises, as we can immediately see the ideas and changes that employees have suggested.
for bigger
job
companies,
seekers,
right?
right?
Yeah.
I think a meaningful and worthwhile startup can become a reality when people are completely sure and confident in what they want to achieve and are able to highlight the value of their hard work through their businesses.
The government is offering very supportive measures to help young entrepreneurs, and DCamp is one of these places.
I decided to plan for a startup company because I want to do business my way, like at DCamp.
In the past, startup support centres only rented out spaces. Nowadays, places like DCamp provide a platform for entrepreneurs to share and exchange information.
DCamp is a special program that not only lends working spaces for new entrepreneurs, but also offers critical education and mentoring sessions about startups. Also, we provide opportunities for prospective entrepreneurs and partners to meet and find ways to help each other through funding and investments.
Korea's first venture boom came about after the country experienced the Asian financial crisis in 1997, and the government pushed to boost the IT industry. As a result, the country became a global IT powerhouse. Most of the successful first-generation entrepreneurs continue in their success. But this is not the case for all. Due to such rapid growth, Korea also experienced a venture bubble burst. With the current administration's push to build a creative economy using startups, the country is once again seeing a boom for new startups. The government has come up with different plans to support startups. The previous loan-based startup funds have transformed into investments by nature, so even if a business fails during its first try, the founders can make a comeback. There are also measures to help startups so they can target the global market. This is an event where you can see this new drive. Because the Ministry of Science, ICT and Future is the primary agency working to promote a creative economy, this talk was hosted by the Minister in order to hear what college students had to say about starting their own businesses. The talk gave young college students an opportunity to talk about their concerns and also learn more about the ministry's support measures that are available to
We
them.
need a mentor who can give us a realistic advice and help. Is this possible?
The Ministry of Science, ICT and Future opened up a startup center to provide successful startup business mentors to young entrepreneurs who are looking to venture out their own businesses.
What did the audience think about the event?
I'm planning to start a company after I graduate, and I think this concert was a meaningful mentoring session.
This is the generation that will lead the future of Korea's creative economy with their spirit of passion and determination.
And the bill to promote the so-called one-person creative businesses goes into effect starting today, and it defines the businesses as having not only just one founder, but companies that have less than 5 co-partners. So it'll expand the scope of people eligible for support, right?
Yes, that's right. So this new legislation is in place, it's available, and it's there for those who want to start up new businesses, new small businesses in Korea. It's great for those who are young entrepreneurs and for new startup companies.
I wonder if we qualify for young entrepreneurs.
You know what? I was going to say
Four
exactly
of us,
that.
right?
We need to come out with an application or something.
Right. Let's work on that. Thank you, Audrey, for this great story.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to the end of this edition of Korea Today.
All right, it is that Monday. The Monday blues might be with you, but get over it as soon as possible. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 7
Get
a.m.
over it? That's a bit harsh, isn't it?
Oh, get to the point, right?